We're going to talk about earthquakes? No. Yeah, I thought you want to talk about baseball.
Where are you on the Astros sign stealing scandal and the resulting punishment?
I wasn't going to be answering no Astros questions today.
That's right, Rook. That's right, Rook.
Baseball's where I belong. I don't care what field. I love this team. I want to be here forever. I want to be the Padres forever. But baseball is what I always love.
Since we're in the moment, is there a more annoying sports phrase than "get in the hole"?
Oh, you're saying for this? Yeah. Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Indeed, that's what I do. Hi, everybody. I'm Marty Caswell. Welcome to Marty Time TV, the Monday kind of happy hour afternoon edition. We are brought to you by the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. It was a very eventful weekend for the Padres, of course, in Houston. If you're the Padres, man, these road trips have been they've been devastating, right? Losing Jackson Merrill and then Jake Cronenworth on that last road trip, and now Luis Ariz, that scary collision on Sunday versus the Astros at first base. Thankfully, we have some good news on Luis Ariz. I know Mike Schultz said earlier on Monday that he is in concussion protocol right now, but that's more out of caution than necessity. So we'll see what happens with Luis Ariz. But man, the Padres are getting tested early. It's a really good thing that they built up a huge cushion, went 12-1 at home in the talented NL West, because man, they need it right now. The lineup they came out today. Tatis, of course, leading off. Tatis, who, by the way, the player of the week for the National League. Gavin Sheets at first, Machado, Bogarts, that's fine. But then you have Tirso Ornelas, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Iglesias, Tyler Wade, Maldonado, Vasquez. I can't imagine this is the lineup that the Padres or any Padre fan was envisioning, right, when the season started. They're getting tested early. We spoke about this last week here on this format with AJ Cassavell, with our different baseball guests. Are the Padres, led by Tatis and Machado, is the Tatis good enough to go ahead and carry this team in the absence of players like of Jackson Merrill and Jake Cronenworth and Jason Hayward? Yes, he is, if he has his normal cast of characters. And I don't know that having Ornelas and Oscar Gonzalez in the lineup, and I mean, they're really getting tested right now. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of the Padres, we are going to hear from Michael King later in the show. We had a very fun interview on how he flips a switch on game day. Michael King is delightful, right? Like the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. But when he's pitching, he's a different dude. So we had a fun conversation on what he does to go ahead and rile himself up. That'll be to end this show. But we're also going to have Buster Olney. Buster Olney was part of the ESPN crew again for Sunday Night Baseball in Houston. And he had a great conversation with Fernando Tatís Jr. about just the level he's playing at right now and the conversation he had with his father. So we're going to go ahead and jump in to ESPN's Buster Olney talking about the Padres, the scary injury to Luis Ariz, and also just Fernando Tatís Jr., man, playing at an MVP level. Here we go with no exception. There's a lot to go there, especially considering the news that Luis Ariz is on the 7-day IL in concussion protocol. And of course, the Fernando Tatís Jr. show, which has continued really since the start of this season. Buster, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Delayed in travel coming back to Montana, but we're here and talking baseball and excited to talk about the Padres because they're such an interesting team. Carl Ravitch, when we were preparing for the game, he just looked at me. He said, "Man, they can beat the Dodgers." That's the biggest question in baseball this year. Who can beat the Dodgers? And I think we all walked away from that convinced that, the Padres are one of the teams that could.
How much of that is based on the spectacular performance of Fernando Tatís Jr., who is showing why people have him in the MVP conversation this early in April, and just the way he can carry a team despite all their injuries?
Yeah, so I spent the whole weekend basically digging into Fernando Tatís Jr. and his evolution as a player this year, which is really unusual. And it was remarkable to go from talking to Martin Maldonado, 15 years in the big leagues, look me in the eye, because I just said to him, I said, "What do you got on Tatis?" And he goes, "Best player I've ever played with, and it's not close." And you think about that. He played with Mike Trout. He played with Carlos Correa and Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve, and he certainly didn't mean as a slight for any of those guys. He's talking about what he's seeing right now. Then I go and speak to Altuve and ask him about how difficult it is to do the things that that Tatis is doing this year and being more disciplined at the plate. And he just shook his head and told me a story about how he stopped Tatis at second, walked up to him and said, "Man, you are so good." And he was just and it was interesting. We interviewed Manny Machado at the start of just before the start of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And Manny has been around a long time. And so to see how he embraces Tatis and how good of a player he is this year, that told me a lot. Because Manny is not easily impressed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as you're saying this, I'm just thinking about the dugout exchange that Manny had with Tatis a couple of years ago, right? When the cameras caught them and they had to be separated by teammates, and he was telling him, "It's not about you. It's not about you." And I think later on he elaborated, like, "You're such a great player. You have to do the little things." And it's just remarkable how that relationship has evolved and how much more the talent's always been there for Tatis. But as Tatis mentioned, back in February, that when his head is in the right place and he's healthy, there is no better player in baseball than him. And I think we're seeing it right now. But Buster, I caught a bit of your podcast this morning, your excellent podcast, your conversation with Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez. What from this weekend, when it comes to Tatis specifically, and you alluded to in your podcast, really caught your eye, really stood out for you?
Well, the plate discipline, which is, Michael King, after he pitched on Saturday, I just asked him again, an open-ended question, what are you seeing in Tatis? He goes, I pitched against him. And the scouting report was always, you could get him to chase. You could throw the ball out of the zone, and eventually he would be undisciplined, and he would chase it out. And so it was sort of my big challenge all weekend was where does that come from? Because it's so hard in baseball for a player to turn that switch on. Usually you're either really aggressive at the plate or you're the Joey Votto who works the strike zone. It's very rare that someone moves from one camp to the other. And going into that game last night, he had more walks than strikeouts after, for most of his career, having 2.5 strikeouts for every walk. That doesn't happen. So when I asked Tatis in my conversation with him yesterday, he gave me a general response about how listening to things that maybe you don't want to hear, and then drilled down a little deeper. And he related this remarkable conversation with his father, who, of course, knows all about hitting in Major League Baseball. And he said, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, my father asked me, do you think you're a good hitter? And Tatis, young junior, said yes. And he said, no, you're not. And he went into all the nuances, the two of them did, for what he needed to do to not just go to the plate and react to a pitch, to actually have a plan and to think through things and use all the tools that he has at his disposal. And that's clearly what he's doing this year. And a couple things. One, he said to me, I'm so thankful I have a father who tells me the truth. That absolutely is a father of 2 kids myself. The fact that he said that. And then I got done the interview and I was walking away and he looked at me and he said, and now we'll see if I can keep it going. So he knows. Like, it wasn't like, yeah, I'm doing great and we're good.
I have to use a paper clip.
It was. You want me to pause?
Do you hear me?
I'm talking to Buster Olney, August. You got to wait, honey, okay? First grade homework. I'm sorry. Please finish what the conversation was at the end.
Yeah. So, and it's clear when Fernando looked at me and he said, you will see if I keep it going. He understands what his challenge is. He knows he's not taking it for granted that he can keep this going.
Okay. Pause for 1 second. Do you want those nerds? You got to go finish your homework. Okay. All right. Buster, how do you think this conversation would have gone down if this happened 2 or 3 years ago? Like, Fernando has openly spoken about becoming more mature this season. Like, something has clicked. I'm just wondering how that conversation went, because he speaks to his dad all the time. They talk every single day. He works out with him, with a couple of other players too. So I'm just wondering, how would that conversation have gone over a couple of years ago?
Well, I don't know him well enough to know to answer that question directly, but I know from being a dad of 2 kids, a 25-year-old daughter, if I had said, very direct, blunt things to her at 17, they'd land differently than they do now, because she trusts it's just Fernando, maturing and getting older. And and going through the same processes that we all do as we get older, and understanding, what's behind those words and taking negative feedback in the proper context. My instinct is that based on what I heard earlier in his career from other people, that he probably would have sort of brushed it off because he did think of himself as a good hitter. And why wouldn't he? He's already finished third and fourth in the National League MVP voting, but he's hearing what they're telling him. Look, you can be so much better than that. And that's what Maldonado's talking about. He's the most talented guy he's ever seen.
And he also got paid. Like the Padres invested in him, a couple of years ago, really after one full year in the bigs, he got paid. So I wonder how hard it is for a player with so many physical gifts like that to be like, oh, you want me to go? I can get better. What are you talking to me? What are you talking about? So I just wonder how difficult a conversation that was. All right. Before we get to.
And can I just follow up on that? A couple of quick stories. One, I think it's absolutely crucial now that we look back on it with time and you see in Fernando Tatís Jr., move to a place where he is back to being a star. I think the fact that Peter Seidler embraced him after the PED suspension was huge, because you could feel ostracized. You could feel like the organization's pushing you away. Peter Seidler went to his house and basically said, okay, we're going to move forward. The other thing, too, is that I related this to Fernando, that in the time that I covered Tony Gwynn, he was going through an evolution where in the first half of his career, he basically, would hit a lot of singles. He'd won batting titles. And then somewhere in the middle of his career, Tony understood that he could do damage at the plate if he looked for those opportunities. And as you know, in the latter half of his career, he was driving the ball. There was a lot more extra base hits there for Tony because he began to apply all of the information that he had gathered on opposing players and opposing pitchers and use that. And I think that's what's going on with Fernando.
I am so glad you brought up Peter Seidler to begin with in this conversation, because yes, we did hear from Fernando how supportive, how much it meant to have Peter fly out to go see him when he felt ostracized from the entire world. I know Jurickson Profar was a guy that he also relied on, and that's another story for another day. But speaking of which, that contract now, when you look at it, especially when you see what his friend and countryman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed for, that's a bargain. Don't you think? What
it is a bar. Yeah, there's no question. And coincidentally, we get done the game last night and I'm down having a beer with David Cohn, and who walks in but Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Oh, really? Really?
Because the Blue Jays are playing in Houston. Okay. And so he walks in and both Coney and I were like, man, way to go. Yeah. What a great contract that you got. Yes. And that's why, in part, the Padres signed Tatis at a young age to save money over the course of the contract and to have it pay off, because you're guaranteeing a young player a lot of money. But also they believe in the player. They believe that he could be the type of player that what we saw on Sunday Night Baseball, where he's having impact running the bases and hitting the game-tying or the tie-breaking home run and making those two ridiculous throws. Neither one of them ended in and out, but, a throw from right center field to home plate and then a throw from his tuchus, as David Cohn said.
I heard that.
Which was crazy to first base, and it demonstrated for everybody what an unbelievable athlete he is.
Today's lineup. Okay, now the Padres are the best record in baseball. Tatis Jr., who we're talking about, of course, just named the National League Player of the Week. Today's lineup:
Shocker.
Tatis, exact. Gavin Sheets, Machado, Bogarts, and then after this, Buster, Tercio Ornelas, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Iglesias, Tyler Wade, Maldonado. It's a good thing the Padres got off to that fast start, because with the injuries that they are accumulating, Jackson Merrill, Cronenworth, Hayward, Darvish, Arise. It's remarkable that they played so well, because it's given them a little bit of cushion right now to deal with the injuries.
Well, and you and I talked about how the big challenge for this team, because they have great stars, is how top heavy they are. And, I thought that AJ Preller made some good moves down in spring training, just before spring training, adding all this veteran depth. Iglesias and Hayward and Connor Joe and on the cheap, essentially, and grabbing these guys. I was saying to them, my colleagues last night as we were walking away, I said, think about that infield they finished with in the game last night. Gurriel, Iglesias, Bogarts, Manny, how like the collective brains in that group is awesome. But you are going to need those guys back. You're going to need Jackson Merrill back and Luis Arraez back. It was so good because it was a scary collision with Arraez. It seems like good news in terms of the time frame of him coming back. I think we all were kind of wondering, did he break his jaw? Did something like that happen? But, so far, good news on Arraez. And my sense is Jackson Merrill's a couple weeks away.
Okay.
It makes sense for them to slow play his return to make sure that he's going to be okay when he gets back. So I think he's probably another 2 weeks.
Just a baseball play? Just a bang, bang, you can't get out of the way on that play to first?
Yeah, and you never see it, right? You don't see it in baseball anymore now that they have these rules against collisions at home plate, contact at second base. It was a play, it was flipped by Christian Walker. Second baseman had made a nice job getting over to the bag, Dubon, but they were both in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I was surprised that Dubon didn't get hurt worse than he did, because as he said after the game last night, he felt terrible about it. He said, look, I'm not a big guy, and Arraez is bigger than he is, and yet Arraez took the worst of it.
2 more questions if you have time for it, Buster. What are we learning right now about the strength of the National League, a couple weeks into this season? Dodgers, of course, have all that talent. They're eventually going to get healthier. The Padres are the walking wounded right now. They're somehow finding ways to win. How they're doing it, I'm still not quite sure. Cubs, Giants, D-backs. What are we learning about really the strength of this National League?
It's remarkable. And I've talked with executives in the last week about this. They have never seen the disparity between the two leagues the way it is right now, to the degree that it feels like in the National League, if you want to make the playoffs, you better win 90-plus games. Where in the American League, you have the Orioles off to this historically bad start with their pitching staff, and they're like 2 games out. Like it feels like the American League is so forgiving, and the National League, on the other hand, is going to be incredibly unforgiving. The races are going to be amazing. And when the game of musical chairs, when the music stops in the game of musical chairs, there are going to be 2 or 3 really good National League teams that don't make the playoffs, teams that would probably win a division in the American League.
Okay, and this is going to be a short list. Name me the players who are playing better right now since the season started than Fernando Tatís Jr.
Okay. I don't know if I want to say better. I'm going to say, let's talk about guys in the same realm, okay?
Okay.
So Kyle Tucker's off to an unbelievable start with the Cubs.
Yes.
He is playing great. Corbin Carroll right now is absurd. Pete Alonso, after all winter, I think the market was telling him, yeah, you're not that good, and he's coming out with a vengeance. And I think, generally speaking, when you ask people around baseball, okay, who's the best hitter in the sport? Everyone's like, well, there's Aaron Judge, and then there's everybody else. I mean, it's without Juan Soto, Aaron Judge is having an incredible start to the season, far better than he did last year when he had one of the greatest seasons ever by a right-handed hitter.
Now, does Juan Soto know how well Pete Alonso is hitting behind him? He made some really interesting comments last week.
I was surprised. He said, first off, what he said was absolutely truthful when he talked about, opposing pitchers are probably working differently because he doesn't have Aaron Judge hitting behind him.
And he's a very honest, he's a very candid person. And he really, really is. And that's something I do respect about Juan Soto.
You love it. And then at the same time, you shake your head when you read it. You were like, I thought the same thing you did. Like, Pete Alonso's killing it. And the other thing, too, it's one of those things you just don't say out loud, right?
Yeah. You don't. All right, Buster. Anything else that stood out from this past week of baseball? Which, by the way, your podcast is great. The highlights, the moments, the interviews, the comments. So if you are a baseball fan, if you're a Padres fan, there's always some great Padres stories in there, especially when the Padres play on Sunday Night Baseball. So I highly encourage listening to it, whether you're in the clown car or something else.
Well, Marty, I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of fun conversations. I can't wait for Dodger and Padres games this year. They'll be so much fun.
They're going
all the division games are going to be so much fun.
Right, and the Padres get the Giants next week at Petco Park. I'm sure it's going to be. It's always a fun atmosphere when the Giants fans and the Giants players come to town. The return of Bob Melvin, who will get booed as he has since he went to the Giants. But man, Padres and Dodgers. I'm thinking Yu Darvish is back by then. Maybe Shohei Ohtani is pitching by then. It's going to be electric. So if I don't see you sooner or talk to you sooner, Buster, then I will definitely look for you at Dodger Stadium or Petco Park. That should be a blast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marty.
All right, Buster, you're the best. Thank you so much. Okay, so that was ESPN's Buster Olney. I don't know who that first grade 7-year-old intruder was that came in during the interview, but that was Buster Olney. Always appreciate his time. Padres man getting a lot of national love. So, all right. Anyways, this is later than, hey, quiet first grader. This is much later than I normally go ahead and do my show. Usually 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday, we're going to have AJ Cassavell, Padres.com. I believe he's going to be in Detroit tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have more of an update on the walking wounded. I don't know how many more lineups we can see with Mason McCoy, who was the latest, who was called up to replace Luis Ariz. I'm also interested. I know a lot of people are now all of a sudden high on Luis Camposano because he's hitting well in AAA. But I mean, the Padres decided to call up McCoy over Luis Camposano, who has shown that he has the potential to hit in the big. So, anyways, AJ Cassavell tomorrow. All right, to go ahead and close today's show, and this is the Monday happy hour edition. It's been a day. It's been quite the day. We're going to finish it off with Michael King. Michael King he is a pleasure to talk to. But as you will recall from his last game at Petco Park, he was brilliant, right? I asked, the Masters were on. It was playing the Padres clubhouse, and I asked him if he liked getting the whole thing from spectators, if he were a golfer, and he seemed to like it. So that's kind of where we start today's interview with Michael. Okay, I need to let you know that when I got that golf question about getting the hole on after you pitched, and you had that look of shock on your face, but I will tell you that your answer was met with scorn and disdain from yes, no one appreciates your answer. Would you like to go ahead and redo that?
I would. I'm gonna double down on it. I love the get in the hole one. I think it's a classic. I got nothing else to say. I'm sorry that I upset the fans.
Would you? What's the equivalent if you're pitching? Like, would you want to hear something like that in a high pressure situation from Padres fans? I mean,
Equivalent, though.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. I mean, you're the pitcher. It's your opinion.
I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be. I know, like, I had buddies in college that would always say, throw him a chair, like, sit him down. And I loved hearing throw him a chair. Every time I got to a 2-strike count, that's what we would yell. That's the only thing that's kind of in my head right now. And yeah, I love it. Every time I'm out there, I'm going to try to throw a swing and miss pitch. Every time I'm hitting a golf ball, I'm trying to get in the hole. So it's reaffirm. Is that an affirmation? Sure. Is that where, whatever. Yeah, making up words now to try to defend myself. But yeah, no, I like it.
So you're a pretty big golf fan. Okay, do you appreciate that Rory's sports psychologist told him not to talk to Bryson DeChambeau to get in his head because that would it gave him an edge?
I mean, I think everybody has to approach their game in a different way. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know Rory or Bryson at all. Bryson's definitely more of like the outgoing character that likes to talk. So I guarantee you, in those situations, Bryson's the type that would talk to his opponent. And I now equate it to baseball. It's like when I'm pitching, I definitely try to flip a switch and I try to get into a different mode. You see me smiling and happy, asking me these fun questions. But like on the field, I do not want to be smiling at my opponent. So I understand both sides, and it's honestly just whatever way you're going to feel that success.
You just took me to my next question because you're like the nicest guy in this clubhouse. We all love talking to you, but I've heard from your teammates, from Ruben, that you flip a switch when you're
bad word there. Bad word. Yeah, I've been told that a few times. It's just how I've always been. I think that I pitch the best when I'm angry. I want to feel my back up against the wall, and I kind of put myself in those situations to, even if I'm not in those situations, I try to make that my mentality when I'm out there. So it's definitely fun to almost have that switch, but there are times where I need to get to that mode and I'm not in that mode, and so there were things that I had to work on throughout my whole career to make sure that I was in that angry mode when I was pitching. That's
great. So is any of it fabricated? Like, is there something oh really?
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. If I'm pitching first pitch of the game, I want to be pissed off, and there's a lot of times where it was a great bullpen and I had a great lunch and I had a great day, and it's like, how do you get into that pissed off mode? I always try to bring it to like, being mad at other people makes me better. So like, whether it's the umpire, whether it's a hitter that fouled off a pitch that I don't think he should have fouled off, or a guy stared at me when he got in the box. And it's just like you just try to, and I guarantee you none of that had any meaning behind it. But in my head, it makes me mad, and I want to pitch mad.
So who are you gonna be mad at next? Like who's me?
Okay. No, I would never. I don't know. Honestly, it depends on the day. And I obviously I try to be this kind of guy throughout the whole day, even the whole 5-day rotation. And I always say it's after the national anthem. That's when I try to lock in. So even when you see me on start day, I'm still laughing and hanging around. And then I try to lock in after the national anthem.
I'm going to give you a new target to get mad at. In spring training, during the whole ABS stuff, I asked Ruben Niebla which of his pitchers he trusts the least on balls and strikes.
No.
Oh, yes. You know what he said?
Oh, my God.
He said Michael King because he thinks everything is a strike. So
Everything is a strike. Ask him, the next time you see him, ask him which pitcher was the only pitcher on the Padres that challenged a pitch and if he was right or wrong. Just ask.
Really?
Yep. Just ask. I'm not going to give you the answer.
I know you took the credit or the blame for Dylan Cease and his look. And what's that? What?
But like, you got to be honest with me. Do you like that better, or the mustache better, or the beard better?
I like the mustache beard.
It's shockingly bad. Yeah. But he's got a great jawline, so it's nice to see the jawline. That's why I'm a mustache guy, I think. He also needs to clean up the hair. Hair is still crazy.
He's got really good hair, good balance.
But it's crazy right now. Like I want it to be cleaned up.
How much time does he spend on his hair? Because
not much. No, he's naturally gifted. Just like that fastball slider. It's all natural.
Okay. How superstitious? Pitchers are all weirdos, right? I mean, you have to be. How superstitious is this rotation, and who ranks top of that list? I'm gonna go Dylan. I'm saying Dylan.
I don't see many of the superstitions. Like I would say myself, just because I don't know what the other guys' superstitions are. I haven't really asked that question. I got weird ones. They're not, again, things that you wouldn't see. I had a start in the minor leagues and gave up a ton of runs, so I won't eat gluten before I pitch the day of. I actually don't even know what it was. I think it was a full cheese and so I was like, never gluten before I pitch. I like sleep certain things. I try to get a certain amount of sleep. I put my left shoe on before my right shoe. Like those stupid things that I do. But I'd have to say myself because I don't know any of the other starting pitchers' superstitions.
Okay, last things I know I have to go. I have to go in a second. But I'm intimidated by Nick Pivetta. Like, what's this guy like?
Oh, he's goofy as hell.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You
Don't put that out before his start, just in case he sees it. But yeah, no. I honestly I saw the same thing as an opponent. Yeah. I'd see him and I'd be like, he's walking around the mound like Max Scherzer, prime Max Scherzer. Yeah. He's like screaming at hitters. He's like that ultra competitor, and I was like really excited for him to be on this team because I'm like, oh, I get to see like his whole act the day of, thinking that like he won't talk to me on his start day, and he's like the goofiest guy I've ever met. He's a Canadian. Oh. He's goofy and he's too tall for his own good, and then he just locks in and goes psycho mode. It's similar to me on start day. He goes psycho mode, and it's fun to watch when he's on.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to go ahead and relabel this interview. Are you saying that Canadians are goofy? Is that what you just said?
Oh, don't you say that? But different culture, So he was raised in Canada. He doesn't have the same American ideologies. Is that a word? I'm making up words now. This whole interview is making up interview. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get ripped for fans for that. It's gonna be get in the hole, and Canadians have a different culture than Americans.
Okay, so that was Padres pitcher Michael King, who's, as you guys can see, is just an absolute pleasure to talk to. So what I got from that interview with Michael King, the next time he pitches, and he's pitching well, make sure that you're yelling at him at Petco Park, throw him a chair. And also, Max Scherzer didn't walk around the mound. He stormed around the mound. So he made a comparison, Nick Pivetta and Max Scherzer. That was a lot of fun. All right, guys, that was it for today's Marty Time TV. I'm really testing it. My Wi-Fi is acting crazy. Actually, it's not even my Wi-Fi. I'm using a plugged-in Ethernet cord, but I'm just having one of those days here in Pacific Beach. So Thanks for joining me. I know it's an unusual time, but the pleasure of Marty Time TV is that it's on demand, right? You can watch it morning, afternoon, the evenings. I'll send clips out on Instagram. Don't forget, on Tuesday, we are going to have AJ Cassavell talking Padres. Can the Padres win with Mason McCoy? All right, we're brought to you by the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. They've been so good to us and to all San Diego sports shows. So thank you again, Jamul, and thank you guys again for watching Marty Time TV. We will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.